All right, and we are live. We have our final top 25, I guess, of the season, which brings its own whole conversation, which we will get into, which is called caused kind of a spiral effect across the sport. But again, we'll get into that in a little bit. But before we get into all of that, Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Ben. Obviously, as we all react to the bracket news, uh, I think there's a team that shouldn't be in there, and we'll discuss it. Obviously, it's not hard to know which one I'm talking about. But overall, I'm doing great. Excited to talk some college football. We have a bracket. It's fun to finally look at. It's fun to see some of the discourse, especially addressing the group of five and all that entails with that, because that seems like a pretty loud portion of the internet is that they don't like the group of five and don't want the group of five to have a spot. And I immediately argue, well, we did watch Ohio State play SEC Tennessee last year, and if you don't like blowouts, that one wasn't close. So if but we'll get into it.
Yes, we'll get into it. Just in terms of topics and everything, it's going to be kind of like a condensed show, but definitely not within time. We'll jump into the bracket, kind of everything that entails, the selection committee of it all and whatnot, and then we will run through and talk about some coaching hirings. There were only three, and then maybe a little bit of Heisman stuff. This is happening this weekend. And that'll really be it. We'll have some space for final thoughts and whatnot, but we will jump into, again, probably the main reason that you guys are all here, and that is our beautiful, beautiful college football bracket. Not a whole lot of movement within the top four that has caused that. The only thing that they had shown was flipping IU and Ohio State from 1 to 2 to 2 to 1. And then finally, the college football committee chose to honor the head-to-head between Notre Dame and Miami, and that was kind of the really, really big talking point of it all. And I guess we'll just kind of dive into that point before we get into the Alabama and the two G5 schools and all of that. Do you think that the committee made the right decision by finally honoring? I don't know what forced them to do that when they could have done it all season long. But I mean, what are your thoughts on the committee finally doing that?
Yeah, I think Miami had to be in. And I think if you didn't include Miami, you're really telling everybody and future opponents that hey, week 1 you could be on an even playing field in November and we're still going to believe another team is better even if there is this extremely common data point called head to head. And one of you won on the field and the other didn't. Um, but for the side of, I feel like this is more about Notre Dame than anything else, right?
Yeah.
So kind of swinging right into the Notre Dame effect of it all. Like, I have no problem with Notre Dame and what all entails with what they've done. Their director, Pete something, I don't know his last name. He's been on a media blitz, did some Dan Patrick show. I think he did the Barstool Fox show. He was on basically anything that was not ESPN. Anything was that
Which makes
was
sense.
sports
Yeah.
and not ESPN related. He went on and he talked Irish. He talked about how the decision to opt out of the bowl game was, the team took in effect. Like team captains were involved in that decision. It was a pretty quick decision, pretty emotional decision, I believe, but a decision that I'm not. I don't shoot them in the foot for. Like I think I understand it, and I understand
Mm.
Notre Dame fans getting really upset about this because how can you tell me it basically just fortifies the fact that the rankings show that you do every Tuesday it is a TV show. It has no impact on anything we do. But at the same time, if we didn't have a ranking show, if we didn't have an update, imagine you just flashed this top 12 at the end of the season. Wouldn't you feel like you're like in the dark? You'd be like, wait, like you'd feel like you're missing out, even if there wasn't a ranking show each week. So it's this give and take of it all that I don't know how to perfect it. I really don't. If somebody has like a perfect solution, I'll read it because there's a lot wrong with this sport right now, and I still sit here and I'm like, I think this could work, but in reality, I don't think everything is perfect. But yeah, what did you have with this?
Well, in terms of fixes, and I'll just jump into it because it's kind of where you had left everything off on. I will make my point wildly known. The fix to this is not adding more teams to the college football playoffs. The fix is not expanding it and seeing what happens because we were deciding between there were 3 or 4 teams because BYU could have made it and Notre Dame could have made it. So the fix is not to add more teams and make it a 14-team playoff or make it a 16-team playoff. The reason it was a difficult discussion at 10 or 9, where that last spot is not because the teams were good. It's because every single team that people could have put in there was flawed. Again, the college football playoffs is something that should be earned. It shouldn't be given to the team that has the smallest hole poked into their schedule. So I hate the idea that, like, again, knowing everything that has happened here, it is probably going to lead to an expansion when that is the exact opposite of what needs to happen and come from this. It just, I don't know. It grosses me out. That being said, I do think that Notre Dame should be in. I don't think Notre Dame should have been in over Miami. I understand why they're mad about it. On that same vein, I do think it's a kind of a weak move for them to opt out of their bowl game. Like, I saw a lot of fun memes and everything on it, but like, you can't just don't just opt out because it didn't go your way. Again, there were 7 different teams or 7 like big name teams that had opted out of bowls this year. Again, that's Notre Dame, K-State, Iowa State, Florida State, Auburn, UCF, Baylor, and Rutgers. And some of those, like, valid reasons.
Well, some of those are 5 and 7s. Some of those, yeah.
But some of them, like, valid reasons. Like K-State doing it, I get it. Head coaching change. We'll get into that. Iowa State opting out, I get it. Coaching change. Auburn, I get it. But I think it's a weak move. And I don't often say this, but like, I think Emmanuel Acho, if people haven't seen his clip, like, made a good point on this. You opting out of this game has now robbed all of your seniors and all of your, like, not just your senior football players, but your seniors tied to this athletic program in terms of the senior band members and the senior cheerleading squad and all of their families from having their final game, because they didn't go into that last game and say to themselves, like, oh, this is our last game. They thought at the bare minimum, they were at least going to have their bowl game, and they don't have that. So they played their final game without even realizing it. And yes, I understand it was a team decision, but as you said, it was made very, very quickly after them not getting in. And I wonder if they could go back in time, if they could kind of be like, okay, actually, we're going to play in a bowl game. I just think it was hasty, and I think you're crying a little bit about it not going your way. I understand it, because we'll get into the Alabama of it all here. The committee had set a pretty big precedent by leaving Alabama into it, by saying, like, we don't care that you got absolutely smoked in your conference championship game. You are still going to be in. And they set the precedent saying that, like, it doesn't really matter how you perform in your conference championship game. We're not going to knock you for how you perform in your championship game unless it is a head-to-head with someone else in the bracket, which will bump or move you, i.e. IU and Ohio State. But, like, they didn't even bump Georgia and Texas Tech up or down. They literally just switched the 2 spots on those guys and said, we're going to keep everything else the same. So, along with the Georgia aspect of it all, and Georgia not really deserving to be in, again, now they have set this precedent moving forward that it doesn't really matter how you played in your conference championship game, which for the most part, I agree with. I don't think teams should be punished for how they play in a conference championship game unless it is awful. And Alabama played awful. You did not score a single point until the fourth quarter of your game. They have no business being in. They were a bubble team in the first place and showed that they don't belong in the field playing against the top guys. I could go on forever. Your thoughts on Alabama?
Yeah, I disagree with the conference championship because if we're going to protect these games, and I get why they're protected, they're a cash cow, and the SEC and Big Ten specifically are just going to make a ton of money on these games, and so I don't think they're going to go away tomorrow. But for Alabama's sake, if they would have won the game, they would have gotten a bye because
Yep.
they would have beaten Georgia a second time. Therefore, by law, Georgia needs to drop down, but Georgia at the same time is not going to drop down too far because they're not going to drop beyond Oregon because Oregon didn't play. They really kept that sediment with these big conference championships. Like you look at in the top 25, the only thing that switched outside the top 12 was JMU flipped with North Texas because North Texas lost at 24 and JMU won at 25. That was the only flip. So they were really only making decisions on, conference championships if they saw someone else play outside of the major Miami decision. So like just kind of doing what they do, like they're just going on the fly. And for Alabama's sake, if they won this game, they would have gotten this prize ticket of being one of the top 4 seeds. If they lose by 21 points in a game that was their best win was Georgia this season. And now you are, in fact, like rebuttaling that win with a 21-point loss on a neutral field in which the game didn't feel close. It wasn't close in the second half. And they don't get penalized any. They don't get penalized any. And it therefore keeps. I thought they were going to drop them to 10, move Notre Dame up to 9, because that's what everybody on ESPN kept saying. Everyone on ESPN kept saying the same thing, where it's like this argument, the debate that is in the room is about Alabama and Notre Dame. Miami is nowhere to be seen. And so I thought they had the perfect opportunity to split them and have Notre Dame at 9, Alabama at 10, go on TV. And how do I explain this away? Well, they just weren't next to each other again. Like it's just that simple. They head to head did not come into play because they aren't next to each other. And it really feels like, again, back to the Notre Dame point, there's a lot of hoops that the committee jumped through to get them next to each other. And what I mean by that is, I just mentioned that nobody really dropped after, playing a conference championship game. You know who did? BYU. BYU, like there was 2 instances in which they kept Alabama at 9. They dropped BYU a spot for losing to Texas Tech to then get Miami and Notre Dame next to each other, where all the other conference championship games felt like there was relatively no impact. Ohio State drops 1 spot. Yes, because they lost to number 2. They're not going to drop another additional spot. So
Yeah.
it's just really weird, man. It's a really weird finish. And for the Notre Dame sake, they called you a top 10 team for 7 weeks, 6 weeks, however long it was, 6 of these shows. And then on the final day, when neither one of you played, and oh, by the way, Notre Dame's strength of schedule or resume, in quotations, got better. You know why? Because Boise won the Mountain West. Miami's resume didn't get any better. The only thing, unless you're saying, well, Notre Dame got better, so we beat Notre Dame. But just for this to be a top 10 team for the entire length of these rankings, to then last minute be told, actually, we're going to honor this now. And I just think that's, I don't know. I don't agree with that. I think you need to stand on your toes one way or another. And I mean, maybe I'm talking both sides of my mouth because I said that Miami should, you should honor the head to head. But that's before I saw the game. That's before I saw the game in Atlanta. And I think both of them should be in and Alabama should be out because
Yeah.
I just, and that's another thing is you're playing a free game now for these conference. You're just playing glorified exhibition games. If the loser doesn't matter, the winner's going to get the bye. The winner of the SEC championship and the Big Ten championship, until they go away, are going to be one of the top 4 bye teams. So that's all you're playing for. You're playing for a bye, and the loser is basically going to go up there and say, "Well, we played an extra game and nobody else did." Yeah, and you looked skunked against a playoff team. Why
Yes.
should you be the team that gets the 4th opportunity in terms of like Notre Dame, who again don't like the bad losses argument, but if there was ever a season to have one, they have it. 10-2, 4 combined points to 2 playoff teams. That's a hell of a lost resume if we're gonna argue that. And their wins aren't great, but it's just the committee. I don't know how it came to this point to really make this drastic call super late where nothing else felt like it was. I'll say this. I think this was, we can't leave the ACC out again. We can't do it again. Do you think if Virginia won, Miami's in?
Probably not.
And that's
Probably
that's
not.
the problem, right? That's
Yeah.
the fact that we have to ask that question, and both of us, I agree with you. Like, if Virginia is in play here, I don't think they make the switch. I think this was making sure the ACC got a team in, and kudos to the ACC, they got their best damn team in, like as an at large somehow. But they,
Hmm.
Miami's the only team in that conference that theoretically can win the national championship, and so good on them. But um, it's still just a very very fishy situation, and for Notre Dame, for people kind of ragging on, well, join a conference. That's not gonna do anything. Like it didn't. Oh boy, they play in a conference championship now. Like I don't think that's going to change anything for Notre Dame if they join one.
Well, I think if Notre Dame played in a conference championship and said like, "Hey, look, we won," it would make it a little bit more difficult to then bump like keep Alabama where they were at and then bump Notre Dame down.
If
So
they
I
know
understand.
this new, did you see this new ruling with them that
Yeah,
if
if they're
they're
a
if
top,
they're top 12, if they knew that was coming, they're not joining nothing.
no, no. Which I think it's probably about time that they join a conference again. There, I mean, we've said it for years now that Notre Dame needs to join a conference, and it would benefit them in situations like this for them to be in a conference. But Notre Dame still won't, and now I think at this point, again, you're a top 12 team. Then you're going to be in. I think now they have really no incentive to do it, especially when you can look at their 2026 schedule that people are talking very much about all over social media. So when you can put together a schedule like they did, being an independent, and then also get the guarantee if you're top 12, you're in. Why? I mean, it doesn't incentivize them to join at all, and they can just sit here and be happy and have no worries in the world. So the other thing of note at this point, I mean, it's been flashed up on the screen for a long time. So if you guys haven't noticed, what are you doing? But you guys can see we have two G5 teams in here, both Tulane and JMU. That's because that chaos scenario that we talked about last week in Duke beating Virginia ended up happening. So then you get your top 5 conference champions, which end up being Tulane, and then you get your G5 team, which ended up being JMU. Uh, we will see how it plays out. As you said, there's at the top of the show, a lot of people aren't the biggest fans of it, and we'll see how it is at the end of December if that stays the same, which I presume it will. But I thought it was fun. I talked about it like 6 or 7 weeks ago about this chaos scenario and ended up coming true. Um, I doubt this will happen again for a very long time, but at least enjoy it. So,
Yeah,
um,
teams are the ACC almost missed out on getting a team at all. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say tiebreakers are no longer gonna be stupid common opponent head to head.
yeah,
Because, like I said, Stanford versus North Carolina affected who played in the ACC championship. You don't need that. You don't need that to be the truth. You know what you need? You need to. It's the same way that I'm pretty sure it was the Big 12. The Big 12 had BCS rankings. What's your highest ranking? And I think they're going to do the same thing with the college football playoff. And this is great for Miami because Miami is always going to have benefit of the doubt over anybody else in that conference when it comes to rankings.
yes,
Um, so I, I I think that's an easy tiebreaker fix for all of these conferences. Uh, there's not really much like the fact that this happened. We could always sit there and say, "Oh, it's never going to happen in the Big Ten. It's never going to happen in the SEC. It shouldn't happen in the Big 12." Like I agree with you, but it did happen to the ACC. Like you could have a
yeah,
season where it just feels like how the hell did we have a team that is 7-5, sorry, make it to the conference championship and then win it? Like that is scary. That's scary. Like they almost didn't get an entire team into the field because of this, and I think from this point forward, I think tiebreakers are going to change in these conferences and be based on college football playoff rankings.
yes. And then one last thing before we kind of jump into our own predictive brackets of it all. A lot of conversation about, especially the two big conferences, but other conferences doing it as well, about conferences doing kind of playing games alongside of the conference champions. What would your thought be? Or I've seen some people say like just get rid of the conference championship because it doesn't matter, which again will never happen because it brings so much money. But your thoughts on having like playing games, because we saw like that's something that kind of got swept under the rug. We saw Vanderbilt try to do something like eh, similar to that. Like as the week had went on, Vanderbilt was like, "Please, someone play us so we can show you guys that like we should be here."
So
Obviously they didn't,
yeah,
but
like okay, that I immediately like who could Vanderbilt play theoretically? You know, like in this what Miami, because like it would have to be another team that's outside of the bracket. Like Notre Dame's like we're already in,
Texas,
dude. We're not. Yeah, play Texas again.
yeah.
To try and get that data. I just I do think that is silly. I don't think that has much like merit to it.
Yeah.
But hey, it's good. It's good pub to say we tried, guys. We tried. But to your point on conference championships, I don't know why you wouldn't. I don't know why if we get to 16 in January, which could happen. I am not as what is it tinfoil hat this week as I was last week about them getting to 16 after the ACC gets a team in.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a chance. I do think there is a chance to say that, hey, Texas and Alabama's resumes are very comparable, and we think Texas has the talent to win the national championship. Like we're missing out on the Heisman. What is it? Runner up is going to miss this college football playoff, and if we had 16 teams, he wouldn't. And then like same thing, you could say that with two guys, Jeremiah Love and Diego Pavia. I was thinking from the Diego Pavia mindset. You could say from Jeremiah Love's standpoint too. So two like very dynamic and popular polarizing players are missing it. Where if you had 16, they wouldn't miss it. So I think there's a world they get to 16, and if they get to 16, I think playing games would be the way to go for these conferences, especially the major conferences. Maybe not all of them. Uh, I think the big, I think that
Sorry.
the Big Ten and the SEC should do that because you could get double the games, and you could do it like the Champions Classic. with college
Yep.
basketball, like
Yep.
Kentucky and Duke and Kansas and Michigan State. They funnel the fans out. Like they start the first game, they play the first game, and then they'll funnel the fans out for about 90 minutes to 2 hours, and then they'll funnel new fans in for the second game. And I
Yep.
think that's the way to go. 1 and 2 are in. 6 will play 3 in the SEC standings, and 5 will play 4, and those two teams will win. Like those teams go on, and guess what? The SEC and Big Ten would always have 4 teams in every single year in a 16-team playoff, and possibly more. Like I wouldn't even take that away
Absolutely.
from them. So yeah, I would love to play it. I would love it because I'd love to see something new than this because it is so damning to have a performance like Alabama and to go on the selection show the next day and say, we watched that game together and there was no penalty at all. That's just wrong. That shouldn't
It's
happen
stupid. It's dumb.
because it's just because again, like they were honoring the first game happened in September, and it felt like they were so going out of their way to not honor a game from August between Notre Dame and Miami, but they were so protective of that game specifically now because it's
Yeah.
like, well, they went 1-1 with Georgia, like but it just didn't feel like they didn't score for 5 straight quarters against Georgia like that they because they didn't score in the second half of the first game, and then they didn't score for the first 3 quarters. Like that's damning, man. And
Yes.
hey, they got in. They got in. So I think all this nonsense, all this discourse is over because we could talk about a bracket.
Yes, absolutely. Again, this just goes back to there. We had always had issues with the committee and the 12-team playoff literally just being chosen by a group of 12 athletic directors basically, and this is kind of exactly kind of that. Not it could have been more chaotic than this, but like this goes to show that like maybe there needs to be a little bit more parameters and whatnot to be said on this rather than again 12 guys just
I
going
also
based
want to
off the
say,
field.
because this is like, I think it's, I you're not selected is what I'm trying to say to do this. So like Juracek, the Arkansas athletic director, and he even stepped in for the Baylor guy who stepped down. Um,
Yeah.
like he was very poor at the public speaking part of this. He was very bad
Yes.
at it. He was very bad at explaining away 12 people's opinions, which I understand. That's really really hard. So I hope I don't want an athletic director to speak to me, if that makes sense. I want someone in that room with a trusted voice and maybe not like the commanding voice in the room, but like a former coach, something like that. I want someone to speak to me with more of a nuanced understanding of the game rather than, an athletic director kind of going up there and because I mean, how can you not talk outside the both sides of your mouth when you do this? Well, head to head doesn't matter, but in this case, head to head does matter. Wait, what? And it's this trickling effect through the entire thing, and it's we're gonna argue about the rankings. How is number 19 under 16? Like we're gonna do that. What was it? We did that with Texas and Michigan the week before the game. Like it's always gonna happen, but
Yes.
I think there's just ways to. I don't know. I don't know because I keep thinking we need to do away with this committee, but everybody hated the FNBCS and the commuter models, so we can't go back to that. We can't do the numbers. Now we don't like the humans. What do we like? What do we do here? Are we at a stalemate that like just no matter what, everybody's gonna be pissed all the time? And I think that's where we're at.
Yeah,
Because
I
I keep
mean
trying to figure out a
college
solution to
football,
this.
right? I mean like
Yeah. Because well, I was
I
explaining to people in my life. I don't know if you did this to people who don't watch college football, but of both
yes.
genders, and just explaining away what this is and how like and both like every time everybody was like, "Wait a minute, these 12 people just decide who's in, and you have a like I have to say like yeah, the Texas coach is going on TV and he's campaigning for the Longhorns. Wait a minute, what? Like that's how you're campaigning? It's not like wins and
Um,
losses. Well, yeah, because I mean, because James
yes, but
Madison's
yeah.
wins aren't the same as Indiana's wins, and it's yeah, like it's a crazy sport, and I don't have a solution. So I'm really sitting here, and I think that's going to be something in the off season. I kind of think about in a nuanced way, and maybe we bring in the summer if I figure out something. But right now, it feels like a lost cause. Someone's just going to be pissed every single year, and I think we just have to deal with that.
Yes, well, and this is going to be kind of a little bit of the cop out answer, the fence riding answer that people probably don't want. I don't think the computer model is the way to go. I do think it needs to have some human aspect to it. That being said, people are clamoring for all these different guidelines to be put in place and blah 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 blah. Well, yeah, that's kind of what they're doing right now. They're like we are still like in all intensive purposes in the baby phase of this 12-team playoff. Again, where it gets chaotic is if we're going to keep on expanding, because then if we keep it expanding, we're going to set new precedents and then another new precedent and another new precedent. But if we just stick to the 12-team playoff, we all agree 12 is a good number. Let's keep it here, then you just give it time. And as time goes on, as each season goes on, precedents will fall into place, which will then create the guidelines that everyone wants. And again, like I hate to say, like you just got to sit on your hands and wait a few seasons for the precedents to happen. But I really think that's what's going to have to happen if you don't want to just go strictly to the computer model of it all. Um, Again, not what a lot of people wanted to hear, but if you want to do the committee, you want people in like human involvement, that's what it's going to have to be. We're just going to have to sit here and wait for those precedents to be put in place, and those will form guidelines. And then as we go on, it'll become much more clear how everything will be picked. So, do you have anything else before we jump into our own brackets?
I think the G5 should get a spot every year.
Yes,
That's
no, they should absolutely.
yeah, that's my only. I've seen that as a very popular opinion, trying to eliminate the G5, trying to put guidelines on. Well, you need to be top 16, like the New Year Six, of the old days, where it was like to make a New Year Six bowl as a G5, you had to be in the top 16, and blah blah blah. No, the G5 deserves a spot every year. I could care less about potential blowout. I could care less about James Madison's spread right now against Oregon. I have seen 21-point underdogs win the game outright. So there you
Mhm.
go. I need one sample size to tell me that that team could win the game. So guess what? I want to see it every year until it happens. If it never happens, it never happens. It wouldn't shock me because of the way the sport is and the way it's depth driven and athlete driven. But the G5 should get a spot every year. Blame the ACC. If you don't like two, and I get it. A sixth of the a sixth of the playoff is group of 5 teams. Those teams can't win the national championship. I agree with you. Do you think Duke can? Like,
No.
okay, would this feel different if Duke's logo was traveling to Oregon this week? No, it wouldn't.
No.
I'd rather see Bob Chesney's JMU team with Alonzo Barnett and that awesome defense. I would. And for Duke's case, like I for the like the at the buzzer, I was like, I think Duke's gonna get in because I don't think they're gonna put in Miami, but I think they're going to put in an ACC team. And then you
Yeah.
realize Duke lost to UConn and Tulane. They lost to their two good G5 teams. So Duke can't even beat the G5 team. Why would you theorize that Duke is better than JMU if they can't even beat other
G5. Yeah.
G5 teams very comparable to them? So it's interesting, but I just wanted to get that off my chest at the end there.
Yes. No, I absolutely agree. Don't do away with G5. Again, I don't think a G5 team will ever win a playoff, but I never say never. I mean, anything's possible in this beautiful sport that we love so much, right? So again, don't do away with it. Again, it takes one season, one game for a G5 team to upset the fifth seed, for everyone to be on their seats and be like, "This is the best thing we've seen since sliced bread." So yeah, please don't get rid of G5. I second that sentiment. But we will leave this up to just make it a little bit easier for you guys to visualize, unless you think there's a better way to go about this, Matt. But we will jump into our own. Is there a good website for playoff? Because I've tried to find
I
something and
just
wasn't able to.
I just do the ESPN bracket challenge. You could do that.
Do you have to make separate accounts every single time?
I don't think so. No, no, I have it
Let's
pulled up
see.
here. But
Oh
like I could.
well, if you have it pulled up here, then if you just want to go ahead and screen share with us, then
All right. So this is what I'm looking at. Something like this.
yes, this is
This is
what I
pretty
was
good, right?
looking for, but it wasn't. It wasn't. The connection's a little hazy, but I think we can, uh, un, for the most part, understand it and see it. So we'll jump in with Ryan. We'll kind of jump Ryan's out of the way. For those who are just our college football listeners and you guys are unfamiliar with who Ryan is our third co-host who mainly sticks to strictly just college football, but he is an OSU fan, and he'll talk about college football. But again, NFL is more his forte. But we'll do his first just because we know what his picks are, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit more through ours. So make it really, really easy from the top. He has Oregon beating JMU, easy peasy. Uh, and then he has Oklahoma beating Alabama, which we've seen that one before. And this is where it gets really, really fun. He had Tulane beat Old Miss. I think a lot of it has to do with the Lane Kiffin of it all. But I don't know if anyone had told him that they had already played this year and Old Miss beat the brakes off of Tulane. But again, still fun. You never know. Again, there's a whole nother aspect to be added with this because of Lane Kiffin. And then Miami, Texas A&M. He had Texas A&M. Moving on. And we'll jump right back up to the top. He had all of our teams with the buys getting it. So it makes it nice and easy. He has Texas Tech. He has Georgia. He has IU. And he has Ohio State. Which I think this will be a stark difference from last year. Last year, we didn't see a single team that got the bye win a game. Again, I think these top four teams are more clearly the best teams in the country. We'll get into the one spot where I think it becomes a little bit more hazy. But then in the semifinals here, he has IU and OSU moving on down to the finals. This is what he wants. As I said, he was an OSU fan, and I think he purposefully set it up this way so he could get a little bit of a rematch. We saw a fantastic game, which we really didn't talk much about in the earlier segment, between IU and Ohio State. Again, it was really just a matter of who was tougher, and it came down to OSU's kicker, which shocker, he choked in the big moment because we definitely haven't seen that one before. But at the end of the day, for this game, he has OSU taking it home, beat my alma mater, and being back-to-back national champions, winning both of the 12-team playoffs that we have seen. So that is Ryan's bracket. Do you want to go first in terms of our bracket, or do you want me to go first?
I could go first. I could go first.
You go.
Here,
Go for it.
Let me remove it and see if I can find a new way
Refresh it or something.
Yep.
That was my concern. It was like it was just gonna force you to not be able to do it again. So
just refreshing the page, reset it for me. So I already have my bracket submitted on this site. So everything I pick here, I've already picked on the bracket challenge for ESPN. The first game, I'll start with the night game. I'll go in order of the games. I have Oklahoma beating Alabama,
Mhm.
just because I think the environment of Norman truly does affect what Alabama can do here. I don't think Alabama has any of the good vibes going right now. I have said in the past that the one way to beat Oklahoma is you can throw on them. If you can control the front, you can throw down the field. I think Alabama has the offense to be able to do that, but just short yardage and all those little moments in the first matchup, I just feel like favor Oklahoma again, and you know, maybe the offense is better. I don't know. I don't think so, but I think this is a really hard game to predict. I'm going with the home team. That's my tiebreaker, just because we saw all the home teams win last year. Then we move on in order to Miami and Texas A&M. Miami sneaks in. We're already seeing the A&M offensive line talk some smack about Ruben Bain, so that was juicing me up. I was getting excited for this one, and look at me, Texas fan. I'm gonna pick A&M as well here,
Whoa.
just because I think Cassius Howell has an opportunity to right his wrongs from the game against Texas in this one. I still believe like this is the best game. I don't know why this game is at 11 on the Saturday. Maybe it's because it's like the way this should have been the first game. This should have been the night Friday game to me to kick it all off,
Mhm.
because the trench play in this one is really going to decide a lot, that I don't think a lot of these other teams have in the first round, in terms of both sides. Like I said, throughout the season, Miami might have the best offensive defensive line tandem in football, and I still stand by that. Like I still think they are in that
Oh yeah.
Indiana and Ohio State class, and even Texas Tech's defensive line class. But overall, I don't like either quarterback, but I'm taking the home team again. I think they could be explosive in the second level. Talking about A&M, where Miami, I just don't think they have the horses and the skill positions to get it done. Again, the spread is 3.5. I think you could play within that number.
Yeah.
Um, then we move on to Tulane and Ole Miss. I'm gonna keep it short and sweet with both of these. I'm gonna pick against the G5. I am not G5 Matt. It happens. I think Ole Miss in their first matchup. I believe I believe Trinidad was playing in that one, and
Mhm.
he could throw all over this team. And again, similar to James Madison, both Tulane and James Madison coaches, they have taken new jobs. So again, like that has to matter at least somewhat. Uh, and yeah, I'm gonna take Ole Miss, and then for the Oregon of it all, also like James Madison is flying across the country. Like this is the furthest travel they've ever had, and so I'm not just taking James Madison. I'm taking Oregon by the points. I'm taking Oregon by some alt spreads. I think this is one that Lanning wants to get. I think Lanning wants to add to that resume and say, I won in the playoffs after last year and how disappointing that one was. So I think they really lay it on. And then we get into the second round, starting with A&M and Ohio State. I'm going to go with Ohio State here, just because again, I think they're the better team, bar none, and you're giving them that break. And just like we saw last year, maybe the break is the best thing for this team and the best thing for Ryan Day to just kind of, let's everybody let I was watching a little clip with Saban the other day, when he was on the McAfee show, and he said like once we got into these bowl games, like these New Year's Six bowls and like playing the playoffs, they started to practice less to just kind of
Mhm.
get everybody get their feet back underneath them. The kids are on winter break, so it's like you just want to keep that for them, and kind of just let everybody relax and come together. I think that's exactly what Ohio State did last year, and so I think they absolutely win their first game. And then we
Yeah.
get into the Tyler Shuck Bowl of it all, the Orange Bowl. Oregon facing Texas Tech. I think this one could be tremendous. I really do. I think the one thing that Dante Moore really struggles with, and you saw it in the Indiana game, is you can pressure him. If you move him off his spot, he is not a great under pressure quarterback. He does not make the throws needed, and that is exactly how Texas Tech wants to dominate their game. They want to, create turnovers. They create their havoc plays, and kind of try and set up short fields. I'm gonna go with Oregon. I think the horses of it all. I just don't think Texas Tech has the offense to do it. That's it. I'm not gonna put my stock in
Yes.
Baron Morton doing it. I would love to see him do it though. I'm not gonna sit here and say
It'd be
I wouldn't
fun.
be rooting for Texas Tech to try and pull off this upset, because I think just for them to kind of stamp and win a playoff game against Oregon and make the Final Four would kind of tell everybody, like, we're here to stay, even if we are a Big 12 team. And we saw how close the Big 12 got last year to beating one of the big dogs in my team, Texas. So
Hmm.
I think the Big 12 is just scratching the surface, and specifically Texas Tech. But I'm going to take Oregon here, just taking the horse. If Oregon gets healthy, man, I said this a few weeks ago. If they get healthy, dangerous football team, and I think this is the
Yes.
exact road they want to draw. I think they are in love with their draw right now. Um, then we get into the Rose Bowl game, Oklahoma, Indiana. Again, I think this could be a defensive line masterclass. This comes down to who can run the ball, who can create havoc plays. I'm going to take the better quarterback. The Indiana Hoosiers are going to win the Rose Bowl. We had an opportunity, Ben. Oh, it hurts my heart. I was really hoping Notre Dame was the 9 seed and Notre Dame and
Ugh.
Indiana would be able to have an opportunity to face off in the Rose Bowl. Could you imagine that? Signetti getting an
So
opportunity to right his wrong from last year like he did against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl of all places. I just want to see one of these teams incorporate the rose, specifically Indiana, into the helmet. I saw a mock helmet with IU with a little rose in between.
mm,
What is this called?
the Trident.
Yeah, the trident. Like just a rose kind of like wrapped around. I
That'd
thought
be
that was a pretty cool
beautiful.
mock-up. And it's happened in the past. We saw the Ohio State kind of had the stripe down their
Hmm.
helmet a few years ago, and Utah had the U with a
That one
rose.
was
I just
beautiful.
love it. Little
Yeah.
aesthetics like that, I love. And then we get into the final game, Ole Miss and Georgia, another rematch. So Ole Miss is facing another team throughout the season. Um, I'm going to take Georgia. I'm going to take the again taking all or not all taking Oregon, but most of the teams playing in their sites that they want to play in. Georgia's playing in the Sugar Bowl. I just don't think Ole Miss has the horses. You've heard me say it a lot, and basically what I'm saying is I think these are the 4 teams that I believe can win the national championship.
Yes.
That's it. Outside of these 4, I don't think anyone from here outside of Oregon can win the national championship, winning 4 games in a row. I think it's these 4 teams that I would bet my life one of these 4 teams wins the national championship tomorrow, and that's why they're in my final 4. Then we get into the oh man, the Peach Bowl. Oh, why didn't we get the Peach Bowl
Hmm.
down here? Oh, that
I
could have been
know.
something. Having Georgia and Ohio State play in the Peach Bowl. I'm going to go to the Ohio State Georgia game. I think Ohio State runs away with this one. I do. I think Ohio State is far and away better than Georgia. Personally, just that defense, and I don't know if Georgia's offense can really be dynamic enough down the field. If you give Ohio State an opportunity to play downhill defensively, which Georgia's offense is going to give you that ability, I think Ohio State could really, really run away with this one. So I'm taking the Buckeyes. And then we get into Indiana and Oregon, another rematch. I think Oregon is just circling this game. They're trying so hard to get here to this moment. I think these are the 2 top quarterbacks in the upcoming draft. So very excited to see this one if it were to play out again, this time in the Peach Bowl. But I'm going to take Indiana. I think these are the 2
Ah!
best teams in football. I think Fernando Mendoza is the best quarterback in the sport. Just bar none overall. I think it comes down to defensive line depth, and I'm going to favor Indiana in that matchup. I pretty
Hoosiers.
chalk bracket. I would say, a very chalk bracket, but sometimes I think it's this simple. I think sometimes we saw the
Yes.
national championship in the Big Ten championship. I think we saw it, and this is where like we get an opportunity for Fernando Mendoza to have another moment. Indiana on the precipice of the greatest season ever in the sport to go 16 and 0. No team has ever done that. They would win the Rose Bowl. They would beat Oregon again. They have an opportunity to beat Ohio State again, one of the most dominant defenses of all time,
Oh,
and just
you're gonna do it.
2 years into the tenure of Kurt Senneggi would be something very, very special. And Ohio State on the other side, they have redemption on their minds. Obviously, just having this opportunity once again to right their wrongs and come out on top. And also the fact of like Mendoza's returning to Miami. That's a little another little wrinkle in this one. But I'm taking the Buckeyes. I am taking Ohio State. I think in the end, Ohio State gets the last laugh. Call me, big brand Matt here, just taking
Disgust
Ohio
me.
State over Indiana. But I think if Ohio State gets another shot, it comes down to, I mean, either team, because Indiana also had the struggle. It comes down to who finishes in the red zone if these two teams play again. And I really do think
Yeah.
I think these two teams do play again because I think they're the best two teams. And so I took Ohio State like Ryan did in the spot. Just that Big Ten championship game, watching that game and watching the SEC championship, it was stark. It was a stark difference in quarterback play, in the aggression, in just the defensive line ability. That was the biggest thing is like Georgia and Alabama's defensive line can't do the things that Ohio State's and Indiana's can. Like that's a crazy like stark thing to think about, but it's true. And I think those are the things that guide you to college football playoff success because you need to win at least three games, maybe four
Oh
in
yeah.
Oregon's case here if they want to win a national championship. So I think those things really, really drive it. And so I'm going to take Ohio State. I wouldn't fault you if you picked Indiana. So, but that is my bracket, and we will refresh it to get into yours.
Yes. And to be frank, our brackets look almost like a spitting image of one another's, aside from two picks, one very early on and one very, very late on. And I assume that you can probably guess which two those
I
are.
do. I think I
But
can.
yes, I think you can. And we'll start off with like the very early on one here. And we'll jump to Alabama and we'll jump to Oklahoma and we'll do that game first. I'm going to pick Alabama to win this game. Yes, they are the away, but I think again, John Mateer is a very gettable quarterback. He's not that quarterback that we thought he was for the first 4 weeks of the season, and I think Alabama can force him into making some stupid throws. But more than all of that, Alabama for 2.5 weeks is going to hear, you don't belong here. You should not be in this spot. And players are going to use that. And they're going to use that to drive them. They're going to use that to have the grit in them. And I think they're going to win this game. And they're going to say, screw all of you guys. Tell us again why we don't belong here. So I'm going to have Alabama win this game. We'll jump on down to Miami and Texas A&M. I'm right there with you again. My thought process was the exact same. I'm gonna have Texas A&M win this game. I just again, there's not a whole lot of teams that can keep up with this offense. You're really just hoping for a first half of Marcel Reed's that you got in the South Carolina game, especially early on in the bracket
Both of
here.
these quarterbacks are so gettable. It makes like the chaos of it all. Like both of these games, the chaos of it all is just so impressive.
Yes, absolutely. But I think you're just hoping and praying that like early on, if you're a Miami fan, that he just has the South Carolina first half. Because again, I just don't think they have people in the back end of the defense to compete with those playmakers. And then I'm right there with you when it comes to group of five. As much as me and you were both like, no, leave the group of five in here.
These aren't the group of five teams to do it. Yeah.
No, these are not the group of five teams to do it. To the Tulane and Ole Miss point of it all, like your one hope would be like, oh, like Old Miss, their head coach has left. Lane Kiffin is gone at LSU. He's taking a new job. Well, yeah, so did John Summerall. Like John Summerall will be coaching this game, but like the one like quote unquote advantage you would have is now gone because John Summerall is gone as well. And then again, I'm right there with you. If any team can do it, it's gonna be Oregon. Like I think Oregon is a sleeping giant. And then we'll move on. What is the first game in the quarterfinals here?
The A&M and Ohio State game, which for A&M would be in Jerry's world, so they would have theoretically a maroon favorite, but Ohio State fans are lunatics, so they still be 50-50 even in Dallas, Texas, Arlington.
Yes,
Texas, sorry,
lots. Jerry. Yeah, watch it, buddy. Lots of OSU fans out there as well. Like I agree. Again. Every sentiment that you said, I am in lockstep with. OSU is the second best team in the country, as you said. You said to bar none, to bar one, but I digress. I'm gonna have OSU Karen on here, and then is the next game Indiana, Alabama?
No, it's the Orange Bowl.
Orange Bowl. Yeah, again, for the same reasons, I just don't have a lot of confidence in Morton. And it was funny because this is something that, like, again, this is more your point than my point, but, like, Morton has a chance to go down as, like, a folk hero for Texas A&M if he can get this done. Like, how is he going to be remembered within this program? Again, I already think you have to give him some flowers because he made it to this point. Again, not because he was really asked to do a whole lot. It's easy when David Bailey and J-Rod is on the other side of the football. But again, I think Oregon's going to be playing with a big chip on their shoulder, and I just don't trust their offense to do anything in this game. We will jump on down to Alabama and IU. I don't know if it's the next game. It's a game I'm going to pick. Yay, that shock factor of it all, you guys don't belong in here, is worn off. You used it all in round one. IU is the most hard hat team in the entire country. Like, we're just going to put our heart on. We're going to go to work. We're going to get gritty. We're going to get physical. I just don't think Alabama is going to be able to handle that. IU is going to carry on to the next round here. And then, again, for the same thing of Ole Miss and Georgia, Georgia is very, very good. And then this is when that factor starts coming into place a little bit in terms of head coach that you didn't have to worry about in the first round. You're now going to have to worry about it here. Georgia's going to move on.
Another part of the Georgia Ole Miss that I didn't really hit on is that I really feel like losing Lane in comparison to the first matchup, like Lane schemed up some really good stuff in that one against Kirby. Like that was a chess match. I don't know if Charlie Weiss is bringing that out against Kirby.
No.
I think there's a world that it could be close in the first half, and then Kirby kind of just suffocates the game, as he can do. And again, this is another like Sugar Bowl spot, so this is the game they lost in last year. So I just wanted to add in those points that I missed on earlier that I think just even if it was close in the first matchup, this is the game where it's really going to show that Lane Kiffin is missing.
Yes. So I agree. And again, look at that. Our top fours are the exact same.
So do you agree with me? Do you agree with me on this point that these are the four teams? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. Again,
I came away with that like immediately.
Yes.
If Notre Dame was in this, do you think Notre Dame could? I say no just from the fact of they would have to win 4.
I would say no because you have to win 4 with a freshman quarterback. and
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be really, 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 really hard to do. The only reason they had gotten to the point that they did, I don't want to say the only reason because Jordan Love was very, very good, but you had an experienced quarterback in Riley Leonard, uh, which played a very big factor into last year. The moment wasn't too bright, and I feel like the moment could get way too bright very, very quickly for a freshman quarterback in CJ Carr. Again, he was great. I don't want to knock him. Like, he's going to dominate the sport over the next 2 years, along with a couple other quarterbacks. But again, you're a freshman, and I think again the moment could get too
I just
bright.
wanted to ask that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I would probably have them in that next tier down, and honestly, that next tier down would only be Texas Tech and Notre Dame if Notre Dame had made it. Like, Texas Tech is in like this weird little middle ground between these top four teams and then everyone else. Like, I think they are like above Miami. Like, if they played Miami head to head, I would take Texas Tech to win this game. Again, in very oddly similar teams, but anyways, I still think they'd be in their own tier. Again, Texas Tech is in this weird middle ground. But on to these final four. Again, your sentiment of these being the top four teams in the country, the only four teams that could do it, I 100% agree. We're going to do OSU and Georgia first here. It's going to be OSU. I just trust that offense more. And I think they have the more horses. I think they have more horses on defense than what Georgia does. And they by far have more horsepower. Again, the quarterback is a fun conversation. I don't think there's a huge gap between the two, which is saying something. But I just like the talent on that roster significantly better than I like the talent on Georgia's roster. And then again, Oregon versus Indiana. We've seen this story once. Why would it play out any differently than it did the first time around? It's not going to. IU's going to win this game. Now, here we are. The Big Ten championship game, as you said. Again, I'm not going to do the whole prologue that you had done, but shocker, I'm going to pick Indiana to win this game. As I said in Oregon, we have seen it once. Why will it not happen again? The one big key player that was out of this game was on Indiana's side of the football. It was Omar Cooper, and they were still able to win that game, yes, because Charlie Becker continues to just have these crazy games when called upon, which that kid is going to be so much fun to watch in the future. But like, the hope obviously is, and you can never plan around injury, is having Omar Cooper. And that would make this offense a lot more multiple, and have that down the field passing game a little bit more threatening than it was this first time around. They struggled like hitting it more. They were able to get it done again with Charlie Becker when they needed to, but it was a lot more of like these short underneath passes and turning around and handing it off, which again, they were able to accomplish. They were able to win. Good on them. But again, the one key piece is Omar Cooper, and he's going to be back. I have no reason to believe that Indiana can't do it again. They've done it once. Despite what Matt wants to say, we had a lot of fun about this. I've said it before. IU can beat any team in the country, and I'm going to keep it that way. We are the best team in the country. Go Hoosiers, baby. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, my head
It's a very hot take for a 13-0 team.
Yeah, right?
They could beat anybody.
They could beat anyone. Well, again, there was some fun discourse there about whether or not I could victory lap the Hoosiers, because Matt said upon further review, can't victory lap the Big Ten because I said they should bench all their starters. I'm scared to compete.
This is true. This is valid.
So, fun discourse. And yes, you guys see that in the background. I understand, but I've never been afraid, and I think I say it almost too much at this point. I'm going to weed the Indiana Hoosiers all day long. Alumni, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to take a chance to weed them all day long. But yeah, again, it's going to be fun college football playoffs. Really, really looking forward to it. We'll get into the Heisman here, but any final thoughts on the bracket and everything that entails before we briefly look at Heisman or possible other awards?
No, I have nothing else left on the bracket. We'll talk games next week. And exciting month up ahead, even with the bowl season.
Yes, absolutely. Again, it's going to be great. I'm right there with you. And then here are our. Oh, it looks like we got a comment and I had missed it. Oh, doesn't matter. Um, but it got all flustered there. We had talked about the awards finalists. I think it was like 2 weeks ago now. At this point, the big one you were waiting on was the Heisman Awards finalists. Everything is going to be handed out. Is it this Saturday? The 13th? Yes, this
Yep.
Saturday.
Yep.
It seems like it's going to be Fernando Mendoza at this point. There's a like tiny group of people that are still saying like, "Oh, it's going to be Diego Pavia." Oh.
So there's the reason I think there's a world for it to happen is because if if there is a strong contingent of because all of Love, Mendoza, and Sand would classify as Midwest. The
Mm-hmm.
only South, because you think about it, like the voters on this are all regionalized
Mm-hmm.
and they vote for their region. They do it a lot. And last year was the first time in a long time that it was really challenged because you had a Boise kid and you had a Colorado kid. So it was really challenged. Where this year, you have, standard, like here, SEC quarterback who is like very prominent. And then you have multiple Midwest, kind of players here at Notre Dame and Indiana and Ohio State. So like not Indiana, but you get what I'm saying. The best teams in the country in the Midwest and the most prestigious brands in the Midwest in Ohio State and Notre Dame. So that is why Pavia has major steam. I think it's just because the other three cannibalize each other, and in the end, maybe Pavia is just the last man standing with a ton of first place votes because the South wants to just vote him up.
Yes. I mean, to hedge, I put a little $5 bet on Pavia to win it. Again, I've been sitting on a Fernando Heisman ticket for like 2 months now at this point. But to hedge, I thought it was fun. Again, your finalists, as you said, was Fernando, Diego Pavia, Julian Sand, and Jeremiah Love. Not a whole lot of shocker there. I think the one thing that people are a little bit upset about is J Rod, which like sucks that it's come down to this, but like it truly is just because he's on the defensive side of the football, and I don't know if we will ever at this point see a strictly just defensive player win the Heisman,
Yeah.
which is a shame because if anyone was going to do it, it would have been him in this year of the Heisman candidacy. Like that's because he's put up such a great year on defense, but also because there hasn't been like this eye-popping offensive player. And the fact that he didn't even get into like as a finalist and isn't going to New York is again very telling as to where the award is and where the sport is. So and then we'll just very briefly there were three head coaches that got hired over this past weekend. We will start off with probably the big. Oh no, my camera broke. What am I gonna do? Matt Campbell gets hired on as Penn State, and we will leave this up here until we are done talking about Penn State. Matt Campbell was hired on as Penn State's new head coach. Again, for years now, it feels like he has been like toying with the idea of leaving. I think it's a fine hire. Like I don't think it's like an A+ hire or anything. And it's probably like a B+. Like I just think he's a good coach. Again, it's fun that he has a clause in there. I don't know if people have seen it that he has an automatic re-up in his contract that if he makes a playoff, he automatically gets extended. And Matt astutely pointed out that like you just fired a head coach that like could consistently make the playoffs, but then can't win the championship game. So it's just funny that they added that clause in there. What were your thoughts on? I'll turn my camera back on. What were your thoughts on the Matt Campbell hiring?
Yeah, I think it's a great hire. Just in terms of how this search went. like this search felt like it fell apart very, very fast. And I think he is as you like to say, a damn good ball coach. And even if he's at Iowa State, he's been there for a long time. He's a very loyal person. He's talked about like it was hard for him to leave Toledo to go and be the
Mhm.
head coach of Iowa State. So it's one of those things that I think this is a guy that is pretty stand up. I really thought he did a great job in the interview overall and or in the press conference, and then he had an interview with Josh Pate afterwards that I saw some uh, bits and pieces of. I think he's bringing the right mindset to a place that just wants a fresh coat of paint. That's what I think Matt Campbell is. He's a fresh coat of paint to what James Franklin does because they are both the same guy. They don't abuse the transfer portal. They are both going to recruit their asses off, and they're both going to make 3-star guys into legitimate players, and they can do that consistently. I'm just interested to see if he's bringing all the staff with him and how that we and then this is kind of just like the goofy part of it, but it is real. Is like Penn State can't develop a wide receiver. Matt Campbell's been putting Iowa State wide receivers in the NFL for the last decade. Like and you go down the list. You don't even just talk about like Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins this past season. Like Xavier Hutchinson is a guy. Alan Lazard is a guy. Like there are a ton of examples of Iowa State receivers making it and being productive in the NFL. So just those thoughts. I like the hire. Again, no idea if it's going to work out, but just I think they're signing on to a pretty good situation in terms of where they could have been. This could have been pretty bleak, pretty fast.
Hmm. Again, all by all intents and purposes, I think this was a good hire. Again, this is probably not where their sights were set when they had hired James Franklin, but again, the landscape got bleak. That's a perfect word for it. So for them to be able to make just a
I want to say,
solid signing.
all right. So in his, um, what is it? So he won. Let's see here. In his first 5 years at Iowa State, he won a Fiesta Bowl in his fifth year in 2020 in the COVID year, and he won, if my math is correct, 35 total games. Would you put the over under in 5 seasons at Penn State over under 35 wins, including bowl or not including bowl results here?
Probably over just because of the brand. Like, I mean, we've
You
discussed.
think
Like, I guess,
the player acquisition of it all, like he just gets, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I would probably take over, but I mean I think it's a good over under. That's something I guess we'll talk about here really quickly. Again, how the recruiting class had fallen for Penn State has been just like hilarious. They had that was something that had happened
That's
like
what happens when you
literally
don't have
right
a head
after.
coach for 2 months.
Yeah,
Like
and
that. I
like
mean,
they're ranked 150th, I think is what their ranking is right now with 2 players signed. It'll be interesting. Again, your early national signing day window was last Wednesday, which that caused a whole lot of drama with mainly 2 guys, and Charles Henry Jr. and then Legend Bay, which is a discussion for another day. Really quite sad if the story that was reported is true. If you don't know, go and look that up. But again, it was early National Signing Day, but National Signing Day is going to be in 2026, early on, obviously in 2026. So Matt Campbell still does have a chance to try to flip some of the guys that maybe didn't sign at Iowa State over to Penn State, and then flip some of the guys that are just like unsigned and undecided still. So it's not like completely like a bust season for them in terms of recruiting. I'm interested to see how he's going to be able to flip that. But uh, 2 other hires were made. We will start off with K State. K State hired Colin Klein back. They love this guy. He played quarterback there. He really rose up through the rankings as a coach there. And then in 2023, he became the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M under Elko, and now he is back as the head coach there. I think it's a great hire. Obviously, again, everyone within the K-State program adores him. Like they were jumping for joy that they were able to get him. And a lot of it probably is player based, but just in terms of what he can bring on the offensive side of the football, drawing stuff up is fantastic. Like I do think he's a very good offensive mind, and I think this is not quite again A plus, but an A hiring for K-State. Quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this was getting ahead of the curve. I think Colin Klein would have gotten a job next season. Would it be better than
Yeah.
K-State? Likely. But you have the alma mater factor for him. I think this was we saw the end of the Kleiman season. Like I mean, the final taste in the mouth is um, the Utah loss, and the press conference he had after it kind of had the signal of um, just I'm done with this, and they called it a retiring. I think it's a soft firing. I think they
Yeah.
kind of was like, listen, like we have this opportunity to bring Colin Klein in, for OC here. Like, I think we just this is something that if we wait 365 days, what we're gonna go 7-5 with you, and maybe miss out on the one guy that we feel like is going to commit to K State more than anybody. So I think this is great timing, great hire. I believe in what he could achieve, and again, it chops off A&M a little bit, so I'm always going to be in favor of that stuff.
Yes. And then kind of the final hiring was Brian Hartline, the wide receiver coach for OSU,
Offensive coordinator.
offensive coordinator for OSU. My bad. Um, is now the head coach for USF because Golish went on over to Auburn. Um, Shocked that it wasn't a bigger job for him, to be frank. I wonder how much of it is the fact that like he had gotten his play calling duties like stripped from him. So I don't know, but he's a hell of a developer, at least in terms of wide receivers. I mean, obviously again there's a discussion between like who's wide receiver you, but that doesn't matter. I love this hiring for them. Like this is fantastic. I really the big question for me is like how long is he going to be there before he gets poached to be a head coach at a P4 school? I don't know. And again, I'm shocked that he left OSU for a G5 program when he probably could have just, again, waited another year and actually got a P4 offer. But this is great. I love it for him. And again, I'm happy he's gone. I don't have to deal with him anymore.
Yeah, I think this is one of the like he is such a young guy. Like he's not
Mm-hmm.
even 40 is what I read this week. So I think there was somebody I think someone kind of gave him a heads up of like, listen, if you want to be like a P4 head coach, you got to like you got to show you can do it. You show you can do it at any level. And
Mm-hmm.
similar to, we've seen guys climb through the ranks now. So again, like following what Galesh did, he did the same thing. Went from, Tennessee's offensive coordinator just a few years ago to USF's head coach, and immediately had success and got the quarterback right. By the way, too. So again, if Hartline can do that, I think you could look forward to him. I always push back on the Penn State stuff a little bit. I know there was a very and you were a part of that, like just a very pro contingent of like, hey, Penn State should get. I'm like, I think there's just always better hires than a guy who's never done this at this level ever. But I think this is just to get his feet wet, be there for a few years, see if he can do it, and listen, like that's the best part about this is so low risk. If he can't do it, he's going to be the wide receivers coach at Ohio State in 3 years. Like, and he's
Yeah.
going to go back to recruiting the way he can. And I think this is just a guy seeing if I can do it. because he wants to be able to do it. And so let's see if it works. I think we'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I had mentioned it, 10 minutes ago now. At this point, the most like fun part about that was like he had gotten hired on, and then like immediately after Chris Henry Jr. For those who don't know, he is like a very 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 good wide receiver recruit coming out of high school that was long time committed to OSU. Then like postponed his signing, and there was conversation that like Oregon might actually get this done, and then it was like there was a tiny sector of like the internet that was like, does he follow Brian Hartline over? That was never gonna happen ever. And but
They
people
never
were
have
like,
the
well, look at
funds.
Travis. Look at Travis. Travis did it. Like, no, stop it. This is not the same. But again, that was just a fun little hiccup within signing day. So it was Savion hitter, but we don't have to talk about that. But final thoughts before we close this out.
Final thoughts. Hitting on the Indiana Ohio State game just for a second. That Big Ten championship game for that that first sequence, that first 3 play sequence is gonna be a moment remembered forever. Uh,
Yeah.
because I just from the fact of I got chills when he ran back on the field after taking that hit. Like because I think we all had the same feeling of when Mendoza goes down, it's like, "Oh my god, like not this way. Like you could lose, but just like it don't make it feel this way." Where on the first play of the game, clean hit, Caden Curry,
Clean it.
blindside,
Yeah.
like it was just one of those things where Mendoza just never feels him out. He's just making the throw and he's expecting to take the hit, but he takes it pretty good. And Caden Curry said, "Here you go, kid. Like let's roll. Let's have some fun." And that's what happened. And then he jogs back onto the field a few plays later, and it was just this moment of like, holy shit! Like let's go. Like let's do this. And I thought it was just a very fun moment for Indiana football for to have that moment of like added underdog to it, if that makes sense. Like it
Yeah.
added even more of this level of this overcoming Ohio State in that spot, and you have it in Indianapolis, right there in Bloomington. You have the ovation for when he comes back, and he has that play down. What was it? The right sideline to I believe it was Becker. That third
Yep.
and 6. That was another moment where it's let's go get it. Like and because of that play is completed, um, Ohio State gets the ball back with 20 seconds on their own 15 or 10 or whatever it was, instead of getting it back prior to the 2-minute timeout, I believe. So
Mm-hmm.
again, that's just another little piece of it. It was just a phenomenal game. I was so invested in it. Uh, Duke and Virginia would catch my eye here and there, just seeing what Mensa was doing and seeing if Duke could pull off that upset, and then they inevitably do. But uh, the Big Ten title game had all of my attention throughout the night, and that was an awesome game. It was one of my favorite games of the season, and the Big Ten
Yes.
produced 2 of my favorite games of the season, and neither team scored 20 points in either one. Because the Oregon Iowa, I've talked about that.
You love
That
that
was one of
game.
my dude.
Yeah.
It's when teams have to when teams have to like abandon identity to win a football game, and like they have to just adopt something brand new. I just love it every time. Like because Oregon matched Iowa's physicality and Indiana matched Ohio State's physicality. So much so that Ryan Day on 4th and 1 inside the 10-yard line decided to kick 3, missed the field goal because he was scared of Indiana. That's just a weird shift in the sport because you're Ohio State. You should be able to not fear, frankly, anybody, let
Yeah.
alone little old Indiana, who you haven't lost to since 1988.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Hoosiers, baby. No, I mean, it truly was a great game. Again, that first sequence, I very vividly remember my fiance turning and looking at me and being like, "You scared me," because when Fernando Mendoza took that hit, and then 2 plays later, Omar Cooper walks off the field. At that point in the game, I mean, you of all people, Matt, can understand where I was at, or can at least imagine where I was at, where like I was standing up and screaming, like, this is why these guys shouldn't be playing in this game.
It was going to be
Again,
well, and maybe not to the level, but it was going to be the Colt McCoy of 15 years ago. Like that's what it
yeah.
was going to be possibly remembered as.
Yeah, but again, he later went on, Fernando. Later went on like the Pat McAfee the next day and was like, "Yeah, it was a hard hit, but he's like, I was always gonna come back out." He was like, it more so just like took the breath out of me, and he's like,
It
I
took
just
the
need the
wind out of
second.
him. That's what it. Yeah, with how fast he came back in and like his play didn't feel affected at all. That's why I assumed it was. It was just one of those like that is the first play of the game. There is no like settle in. Oh, I took the hit on a scramble. Like that is the first play of the game. Boom, rock. Let's go.
Yes, yes. But again, all is history from there. My one final thought. That Allstate, or I think it's AT&T. It's not Allstate. That AT&T commercial with Trinidad Chambliss is like its peak. It is like one of the best commercials I've ever seen. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure it is very, very easy to go and see. And it's gonna be really, really funny in like 3 months. I guess not even 3 months. In a month, looking back on it when he's the quarterback for LSU, and we can be like, look at this funny commercial. Him
What
and
if
his
he's not? What if he's not?
what if he's not? That's when it gets interesting. But and maybe that was a sign that he's gonna stay at Old Miss. But again, it was just a funny jab poked at it. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. Um, but no, again, enjoy it. You guys only have like about a month of episodes left for College Corner until we kind of just absorb it back into the regular episode. But enjoy it. Again, we got a lot of great college football ahead of us. Not even just the college football playoffs, a lot of really good bowl games to look at, which we'll be covering over the next month and a half. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Again, the NFL not recap. The NFL preview show comes out every Wednesday live, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, roughly around that time if we can be on time. Who knows? But that comes out then, and then our recap shows are every Monday. On that NFL preview show, you guys can become accustomed to seeing all three of us. And then on the recap show, most of the time it will be me and Matt, but you guys will at least be blessed with Matt's beautiful face every week. Yeah, make sure you guys tune into that because it's about playoff time for the NFL show. And as always, thank you for our sponsors, Regional Radio Sports, Spotify for podcasters, and Uppercuts Grooming. And we will see you guys next week. Take care.